You are listening to the Growing Small Town Show, a podcast dedicated to supporting you, the person who really cares about the future of your small town. We believe when people get better, everything gets better, and our episodes offer the ideas and actions that prioritize people and small communities. Thank you for listening. We're so glad you're here. Our guest on today's episode is Luke Henry. Luke and I were first connected because he sent an email saying, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I enjoy listening to your podcast. I share a lot of the same passions for small town development and small business." He also, by the way, has hosted a show called Main Street Reimagined podcast. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. But he was just like, "Hey, I appreciate what you do. I have some experience," and literally, again, I have to say, you get these emails and you're like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know this person," right? They're out of the blue, but I so appreciate it when people do this. Well, this was one where, honestly, I shouldn't ever even really be talking about any sort of revitalization, because what Luke and his company have done, Henry Development Company, or Development Group, in Marion, Ohio, it is astounding. And he joins me today to talk through some of that. And what's so fun about it is you'll hear in my voice, I get pretty excited about things, but this is one of those situations where the scale of what he and his crew bit off with their first project, it's going to blow your mind. And I think Marion is a little bit bigger than my community, but it's still absolutely considered a small community. And I think the whole goal is that it still takes tremendous audacity to do what Luke and his team did. So this is one of those, if you're into historic buildings, if you have some historic buildings in your community and you drive by it, you walk by it, you bike by it, and you dream about what it could be, this episode is 100% for you. And I just think, again, I want people to know about Luke and what he's doing, and it proved to be such a delightful conversation. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed having it. Here is Luke Henry. Well, hey, Luke, welcome to the Growing Small Town Show.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's always super fun to meet a fellow podcaster that's doing anything even adjacent or, in the same kind of space. So let's start there. Let's talk a bit about the Main Street Reimagined podcast. How'd you get into it? Obviously we know where we can probably find it. I'm guessing iTunes, Spotify, all the places.
Absolutely.
But if there's anywhere specific you want listeners to go, but I'm really curious, what made you decide on a podcast? Because I think I get this question asked of me a lot, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things I think that seemed like such a great idea at the time.
Yeah, I can relate.
As a fellow entrepreneur, everything is shiny and exciting, and I want to do it. I want to give it a shot. But podcast really was actually something that I kind of thought about and dreamed about for a couple, 3 years before I took the leap into doing it. And really specifically, I landed on Main Street Reimagined because this has become, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but this has become really my kind of passionate life's work to revitalize and reimagine downtown buildings, help dreamers, doers, and entrepreneurs create things and create businesses that ultimately help to create gathering places and spaces and the stuff of community. And as I began that journey and really got into it, and we were doing a lot of projects, meeting a lot of people, I wanted to not only highlight some of the really courageous and awesome people that were creating businesses and that we were partnering with and putting into our downtown buildings that we were working on, but I also wanted to meet others from around Ohio and even around the U.S. that are doing cool stuff in their communities. And then it organically just grew to also include discussions about economic development and city government and all different facets that I've learned are part and parcel to trying
Mhm.
to revitalize a community. I originally started thinking that it was just about construction. It was just about fixing up
Uh,
downtown buildings, but really
sure.
then
Yep.
learned that we've got to layer on, business development and economic development and entrepreneurship and mentorship and leadership and PR and marketing and politicking and lots of other pieces that go along with this.
Yeah, it's a very mixed bag of things, isn't it?
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love that. So why don't we kind of back up a little bit maybe? And so tell us and our listeners a bit about your community. So because you mentioned you're in Ohio, Marion, Ohio is where
Hmm.
you're at,
That's right.
right? Tell
Yep.
us a little bit about it. Like where is it located even too in the state, just to help people kind of picture it if they've never been.
Yeah. So Marion, Ohio is located in central Ohio. We're about 40 miles north of Columbus, which is the capital city, also smack dab in the middle of Ohio. And we are a community of about 35,000 people in the city, 65,000 in Marion County here that we draw from. And like a lot of other communities that I've seen and experienced across the United States, we are, what some affectionately or not so affectionately call a Rust Belt city.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw a lot of affluence in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and
Mm-hmm.
then saw a significant period of decline in the 80s and 90s with the advent of the interstate system that took people from driving through our downtown. It also included shopping malls that took a lot of the businesses from the downtown. It included some really great manufacturers and advertising agencies, and then adjacent businesses to those that left our community. And there was a couple of decades that were pretty rough for our community, just like a lot of others. And
Mm-hmm.
there was some people that kind of gave up, and certainly some that gave up on the downtown, and some of the buildings had been sort of left for dead, and some of them didn't make it and had been torn down over those years. And really, when we came on the scene in 2018, there were some folks that were trying to get a little bit of progress going, and maybe they'd fix up a storefront, and they'd open a restaurant or a retail business, but it just wasn't enough to really get the ball rolling. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we saw was an opportunity to do a little bit more. And that's actually where Main Street Reimagined came from. It was actually the name of our very first project.
Okay.
And so that project included buying 8 buildings on one block of our South Main Street. That block was 80% vacant at the time in
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
2018.
Okay. Time out. Just one quick second.
Yep. Yes.
You've said our and we a few times. Who are we talking about? You, Luke Henry, and who else?
Yeah. So I started out that initial project. I had a business partner. His
Okay.
name was Alex, or is Alex, and we started that original project together. We did a portion of those projects together, and then again, I can kind of tell this whole story, but ultimately we started several businesses through that process. And ultimately, a couple of years ago, he took a portion of those businesses and continued operating them, a couple of wedding venues, a restaurant, and a catering
Cool.
business that we
Okay.
created. And then
Yep.
I continued and had started building a team that is now Henry Development Group is actually our business name. And so we have a team that we've built with property management, construction management, and cleaning and all those different sorts of things. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the we.
Okay. I love it. That's super exciting. So what was your background prior to the first building you bought? What were you doing? What did your professional experience been in?
Yeah. Well,
I guess
I
where I'm, if I'm going to be more direct, the question is like, what made you think Like, what made you think I should buy a building, let alone 8
Right.
on a city
Right.
block, right? Because like what I think I want to stop and just highlight, and I'm so glad to be talking to you. Like, first of all, you do have a very great podcasting voice. So
Well, thank you.
if nobody's ever said that to you, it's
Thank you.
it sounds great on my ears. I like it a lot. But thinking about the fact that like a lot of other people watched that decline happen. A lot of other people said, man, it'd be cool if somebody did something with those old, some of these old buildings. What on earth, what was in your background that made you go, or even, and this is the thing, like if you end up telling me that you were like a high school science teacher or something, I mean, it doesn't matter what you did. I really want to know. But the truth is, like, there was something in you that made you say, I want to do this. And I really want to know what that was, whether it felt like an alignment with a background or just a crazy passion.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. And I want you to know that I was thoroughly unqualified for this,
my favorite kind
based
of people.
on my background. I also told you earlier that I'm an entrepreneur. And so I have this just kind of unquenchable curiosity. And I have this way of just believing that things can be better than what they are. And somehow I'm going to get in the middle of that and try to instigate making it happen. And so my background is I say that I'm still deciding what I want to be when I grow up, because I started, I'll give you the short version, is basically I started mowing lawns when I was in junior high. That was one of my first businesses, and I had a few. But I, as a lot of kids do, but the difference is that I never stopped. And so I did that through high school. I put myself through college, which was, I went to college and I got a doctor of pharmacy degree. So I was a pharmacist for a couple of years, also owned a landscaping business and continued doing that. And
I love this. That is an eclectic background. Like, and neither of those things. I mean, let's just be clear. Neither of those things scream,
downtown
Main Street
revitalization.
Exactly. Downtown revitalization or Main Street building owner, really, at all.
Yes.
So here's
it's what great. I had the ability to sell ideas and sell people. I have stood up several businesses in my lifetime, and so I had that ability. I had a lot of determination and grit, and just a vision for what I believed our downtown could be. And so, again, to kind of get back to answering your question more directly, when we looked around in 2018, I met my partner that I started Main Street Reimagined with. We sat out on the sidewalk of this block of South Main Street. And at the time, one of the only businesses on that block was a little restaurant. There's a wonderful lady from Argentina originally. Her name's Marcella, and she had been running this restaurant for almost 10 years. She was like the only thing going on this block pretty much, and she was just wonderful. Her personality is like twice as big as the building, so that's how she made this thing work. And we sat out on her front sidewalk at one of the couple of tables, and we looked around and we just said, man, this feels like it has so much potential. But if we don't do this, who's going to do it? Because I'm not sure that there's anybody coming from outside of our community to save us. No big developers coming to buy up these buildings.
Yep, highly unlikely.
And do this. And I don't think that, anyone else. I mean, this is a pretty big undertaking. Now, we thought it was a big undertaking. It was actually way bigger of an undertaking than what I thought. We were so naive.
I can't wait to get into that, because 8 buildings is nuts. I mean, I bought one, and
that's crazy enough.
More than enough for me, So Luke, I think that is there's something incredibly special about the picture that you just painted for us, because, I can imagine, like, obviously I just met you, like, over, and we're on Zoom, right? I don't know Alex, don't know his face, but the idea that I can just imagine the two of you sitting there, and instead of saying, like, this is so sad, like, this is depressing. Instead, you said, there's so much potential here.
Yeah.
And the kind of, you almost kind of, what if we did something? What if, and
Yes.
again, I think it's amazing too, like a shout out to Marcella, because I'm thinking like,
Yes, right.
how does a standalone, like solo business
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, how do you do that? How do you make that work with nothing, almost not only no life around you, but because I don't know about you, I believe in energy, like the energy
Mm-hmm.
of spaces. You can, so that's why some spaces and places feel good when we walk into them and some of them don't.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It had to be filled with some kind of dead and stagnant energy. The idea that, like you said, her personality, I love that. Was, did you say 10 times or just twice? Twice as
At
big
least
as
twice.
the building?
Yeah, maybe 10.
That alone too is really special, because had she not even continued to do that, there would have been no reason for you to even be sitting there. So that's something to note too, right?
Absolutely.
That's incredible. So, okay. So you guys decide, what if we do this, right? And I think I want to also just say that you're absolutely the kind of person I'm so happy to know, because every community needs somebody that says like, and I don't even always love the frame of like, if we don't, who will? I realize that's what you just said. And sometimes that's just true. But instead of wearing that, like this mantle of responsibility, you're saying like, we have a vision for this. Who else could shepherd it but us? Right? Like, because we can't give our great ideas to other people and then say, here, go do this. That's really not how the best things come about. At least not in all the time I've done this show and all the people I've talked to. If you have the idea, it kind of is yours to steward forward.
Yeah. Well, listen, ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. I mean, lots of people have ideas, but to actually go out and do it, write a check and start doing the thing, those are the folks that I love aligning with, and I know you do too, that are really getting out there and being courageous and doing it scared. I mean, that's the thing. Like, as I said, we were thoroughly unqualified to do this. I mean, he had flipped a handful of houses. I had flipped a handful of houses, had a few rental properties that I had bought and done some work. Never had owned a commercial building, much less a package of commercial buildings that were in horrific shape. I mean, some of these, our first flagship project, the building had been vacant for 40 years. There had been a fire there in the 1970s, and nobody had occupied it since then. It had just been kind of used as storage. And
that is unbelievable.
Right?
Honestly. Yeah. Like, cause I can't even imagine what 40 years of not decay, but of vacancy does to, the declining condition of the buildings.
Yeah.
Oh, are these like old factory kinds of buildings, like brick? What were they made out of?
Yeah, so these are your kind of standard Main Street type buildings. So yeah, they're all pretty much masonry construction with framing, and so they're most of them two-story on that block anyway. Most of these are your kind of typical two-story Main Street buildings that have a storefront on the first floor, and then at one point they were some sort of residence on the upper floors.
Okay, so what I'm dying to know, and I cannot wait, when we ask you for photos to like to accompany this and we promote this, do you have some really striking before and afters? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah. I wish I was better at having documented the process, especially some of those early buildings. But honestly, like once we started, the flood water hit me so hard that it just kind of, figuratively speaking, got just sort of thrown for a loop, and we were just in it. And my last thought was doing a great job documenting with pictures. But I mean, as I'm looking over my computer onto my walls, we have some before and afters, and I mean they certainly are striking. I mean, some of these buildings, as I said, have been vacant for decades. And if the entire building hadn't been vacant for decades, then the upper floors, most of them had been for 40, 50, 70, 80 years.
That is insane.
And, to be able to bring life back to those.
Yeah, roofs were probably in terrible shape on most of these things, I would guess.
Yes. I mean.
And this is such a nerdy and like seemingly unimportant question, but it's just like, people can't, again, anybody that hasn't taken something on like this, it's just like when you start revamping like every single, like the only thing that's still standing that you can use are maybe the mason, like the original walls, and that's
Hmm.
it. It it's overwhelming pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, and very expensive. But yes, I mean,
Very, yeah,
we
yeah,
learned a lot very quickly about completely unsexy things like roofs
yeah.
and
Roofs are
old
not
cast
sexy.
iron plumbing and
Mm-hmm.
knob and tube wiring and all of these
Yeah,
things, and bringing them up to you know modern day commercial code is a significant lift. And to first of all understand commercial code, and then the whole process of using architects and engineers and having to work through the building department and getting all of the
yeah.
work inspected in order to get occupancy certificates and all of that is really, really it's a steep learning curve
Oh,
to
it's so
ascend,
daunting.
and so many
Yeah.
folks have done it. And if I can do it, anyone can. But it is a lot to learn.
So, okay, I kind of I cannot stop thinking about the fact that you bought 8 buildings at one time. So, did you have a really clear vision for what was going to happen in each of those buildings? Did you guys start businesses in them? Had you already talked to partners that were going to occupy them? Were you fitting these buildings up for, like, did you know who was going to be in them and what they were going to be? Talk to me about that a little bit, because I just
Yeah.
can't even fathom 8. I'm serious, like it's
Right.
blowing my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was what a lot of folks would call fire ready aim. And so we bought the buildings. We really did have a vision for what at least a few of them we thought were going to be their highest and best uses. And then we knew that we wanted this, our vision was that this block would be the center of downtown dining, shopping, and entertainment, and really a place where people could gather and have community. We have
Mm-hmm.
a nice little, it wasn't at the time very improved, but it was a nice space, a little public park on this block
Yeah.
that gave a nice green space right on the corner of it. And then our flagship project that we envisioned was a wedding venue that was in the building that had been vacant for 40 years. And so we started, with some of those pieces and started to envision what would it look like to create an ecosystem where one thing feeds another thing, feeds another thing. So we started to think, what are some of those timeless things that you've got to have in a downtown? What's going to build community? What's going to build consistent foot traffic and
Mm-hmm.
help to feed one thing to another? So some of our initial visions were, okay, a coffee shop would be great. That's a great community gathering place and a place that drives foot traffic. What about an ice cream shop? Everybody likes ice cream from infants to grandparents. And so we thought that would be a great thing to have early on. We love hair salons. Hair salons, not that I have a lot of need for them, as you can tell, but actually, when I started this project, I had really thick hair, and I've lost pretty much all of
Gonna
it
need
through
to
the
see the
process.
receipts
But
on that, Luke.
but hair salons actually are great because they drive so much traffic. You have wave after wave. Every 30 minutes, you've got
Right?
a new person in the chair. Um, and so we
So
believe that those were
stop you?
really
Can I
important
stop you
building
real quick?
blocks.
Did you guys
Yeah.
study that? Did you? How did you ascertain that? Like, because I'll just say I've been asked so many times as I talk about the building that we bought, like the market research I did, and then I
Hmm.
just laugh at them. I'm like, I
Hmm.
didn't do that. I built what I wanted to see,
Hmm.
based on what I do for a job. So it's not something you could easily replicate and say, yeah, do it the way I did it. Nor would I encourage people to, frankly. I
Yeah.
like I like to share the story and what I think it does, but it's so dependent, I think, on place, right? But was
Yeah.
there a way that you guys determined, besides just anecdotally, right?
Hmm.
Because the things you just said, I'm so like, I'm like, yeah, sounds true,
Yeah.
sounds right to
Yeah.
me. But did you
Yeah.
did you actually have to have some statistics or something to support those
Yeah.
conclusions?
Yeah. Again, I mean, market research would be an overstatement, a little too formal for what we really did. But what we what we did do was studied other communities that were having some
Okay.
success,
Yep.
and we did see, some other up and coming communities, and we went and we visited them and said, where are the busy places? What are the patterns that we see? And so really it was just sort of that kind of informal research and seeing what was working in other places. And then once we kind of got that initial vision and we felt like, yeah, this really could work, then through the process we did do kind of some market listening, and so we would put things like on social media, and maybe it was a picture of the front of a building or an information about a building, and say, hey guys, greater community, what would you like to see in a space like this? What do you think could be viable and necessary in our community? And so, of course, we got the gam. I tell people to do that with caution. Okay. First of all,
Well,
you got to have thick skin.
100%.
And you've
Yeah.
also
Yep.
got to know that you're going to get some crazy outliers. You get everything from,
What do you remember? It was like, what was the
the
weirdest
Olive
thing?
Garden to,
Yeah.
what was like a indoor skydiving place. It's like, guys, this place is 2,000 square feet. Like,
Right.
please read what the information about it before you comment. But alas, we got lots of varied information from a lot of people, and really that has helped to inform as we've went on and continued doing more and more projects and bringing more and more businesses. It's helped to know what does the community want and where do they see the gaps are for families, for seniors, for
Right.
singles. And
Yep.
so we want to make the downtown a place for all of those people, right? This is kind of the heart of our city, and it's the melting pot of all the different types of folks that we have in our community. And so we do want to have things that address all those different populations and where different people feel at home.
So again, I can't wait to see the pictures because one of the things I'm trying to envision is was there a downtown and your property was a part of it and it was just kind of people just kind of drove by it, or was it well, and I think maybe the big question is, did you accomplish, is this now like the heart of downtown? And or where was the activity that you've built now? Where was that happening before? Or was it just not happening, but more like kind of spread out throughout your city?
Right. Yeah.
Did you have a downtown kind of hub before?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
not
I
really?
mean, so it's a decent sized city. And so this is not just like, the only block of the downtown.
Right.
So I would say, what I call our like walkable downtown is approximately, say, 10 square blocks. And so this was one of those. And some of the others, there had been, again, maybe a project here, a project there. And there's some larger buildings. There's some 6, 7 story buildings, so some substantial ones.
Yeah.
We did have, we are the home of a president. So President Harding, back in the 1920s, he was from Marion. He did his campaign here in Marion. He owned the Marion Star, the newspaper, prior to becoming president. And there is a Harding Hotel that was built kind of as part of his deal, although he never saw it finished. And then we have the Harding Memorial that is here. Is actually, fun fact, is the largest memorial outside of Washington, D.C. So it's kind of a rotunda type deal.
Well,
So,
that's cool.
there's kind of some pieces of that. And again, you can see the artifacts of a lot of affluence in the, say, the 10s, 20s, and 30s. And so anyway, our downtown has some elements to it, but this was the oldest block of the downtown, and it was really some of the roughest buildings,
Yeah, like the
particularly
most
like
neglected.
structurally and
Right.
stuff like that. So the very first, the oldest commercial block in Marion was this block, and so we had the oldest building in the commercial building in the downtown, which was built in the 1830s. and that was one of our
Wow.
very first projects as well. So it was
That's
actually
an old building. Yeah.
limestone and
Ah,
masonry
wow.
construction. Part of it was built out of limestone. It wasn't even brick. So kind of cool.
The Growing Small Towns show is recorded locally at the Growing Small Towns podcast studio located in Oaks, North Dakota. It's produced by Pheasant Canteen Studio in Aberdeen, South Dakota, with marketing support from Cassidy Johnston in Canyon City, Colorado. Our intro music was created and produced exclusively for Growing Small Towns by James Bergman, singer and songwriter from Fargo, North Dakota. Local and small. It's what we support and it's who we love. Get your community a shout out on the podcast. Call 701-203-3337 and share your small town success that you just don't feel is being celebrated quite enough, and let us shout you out. You can also share your biggest people challenge, and we'll dedicate an episode to offering ideas to help. Hell, you can basically tell us anything, and we'll do what we can to answer. We can't wait to hear from you.
You know the hardest part about community work? It's not the funding or the planning, it's the people stuff. The burnout, the resistance to change, the we've always done it this way people. And that's why we started the Growing Small Towns Club, a place where community doers and dreamers can bring their toughest challenges, share what's working, and feel a little less alone. It's part think tank, part pep talk, and 100% heart. Join us for just $30 a month at growingsmalltowns.org/club, because communities thrive when their people do.
Today's small town shout out is Watford City, North Dakota. In 2010, the population of Watford City was 1,200 people. Fast forward just 10 quick years to 2020, their population had risen to 8,400 people due to the incredible oil boom in the Bakken in the western part of North Dakota. This deserves a shout out. While we all might be in our respective small towns praying for a few additional people, Watford City has had to deal with tremendous growth in a tremendously short time period. And I was just out there to visit about a year ago, and it is an incredible little town with very resilient people, and they are learning in very real time how to open their arms and open their minds and their hearts to people from all different walks of life. And I know it hasn't been easy, Watford City, but we see you, we're watching you, and we're cheering you on as you learn to adapt to a completely shifting environment in your community. So, way to go, Watford City, North Dakota. Okay, so then I'm like curious to thinking about you guys doing this. I mean, seriously, this is such an exciting, I love this. I love the story. I'm like in this with you. And then every single time I talk to somebody like you, I'm like, okay, well now I got to take a trip to Marion, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like really want to come and see this, but what was the, response, or what kind of feedback did you get from, I'm guessing with a city of 35,000 people, you have city officials, you've got like a city council or whatever you call that group of humans. Do you have an economic developer? Did you have a chamber of commerce? Who were some of these, who we tend to think of as the city or community leaders, and what was their reaction, response? Were they warm to you? Were they skeptical of you? Did they just kind of go, oh, it's these guys again? And, like what, and did that take time to build? Did you just kind of do it without them? What was that exchange like for you?
Yeah. So we bought these buildings. We kind of started
Who owned them too, by the way? Who'd you buy them from?
It was I mean, we assembled them. We bought them from probably 5 or 6 different owners.
All right. Sorry,
so it was just,
you.
yeah,
That's just something I meant to
it's
ask
a good
earlier,
question.
because that's, they're sitting there. It's like, why isn't something happening? It's just because the people that owned them either didn't want to, couldn't afford to, or who knows, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
One was bought at auction. A couple others were bought together that were for sale on the market. Another had been for sale previously and never sold. We reapproached them. One we just kind of heard whispers that maybe they would sell. So, I mean, it was a real mishmash of kind of detective work. And again, we're trying to do this all quietly because we didn't want it to come out that, these guys are trying to buy all these buildings and they've got big plans for them because you know what that's going to do to the price. Even, hometown guys like us,
Totally.
people, want to get the most for their thing. And so we did this all quietly and then kind of made some of these plans. We did some renders up and then we came out, and all of that happened like fairly quickly, honestly. Probably about 3 or 4 months. We assembled the buildings, we put together some renders, we, did this study and kind of had put our vision together, and then we came out and made it public via social media initially and announced our plans for what we called Main Street Reimagined, that we wanted this to be the center of our downtown. And so the public feedback was very positive. I mean, it was crazy the reach that got, and of course got picked up by the newspaper and different folks. Everyone was really excited about it because, I think that people want to love their downtown, and even people that don't go downtown very much or didn't go downtown before that or had seen it really crumble, they still somehow inherently understood that it's important to have that downtown and it's important for it to be lively and beautiful because that really is a lot of how your community is defined by your historic downtown. And so the the like city government, we didn't really get a lot of engagement with them initially. There was some support from the chamber and some folks. We do not have a local economic development
Really?
individual.
Okay.
Well, we do sort of have for the count. They're undergoing some transition right now, honestly, but we kind of did for the county. But really, they were only focused on smokestacks. So they were
Yes,
only
sir. That's not
pursuing,
surprising.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, only
Yep.
pursuing manufacturers. So kind of that big whale top down mentality versus the grassroots, let's build it up mentality. So, it is what it is. I don't,
Yeah.
didn't expect them to change what they were doing just because we had a crazy idea. So we really had to prove ourselves, though. I think that there was a lot of people that were really excited, but I think there was a lot of skeptics too. And of course, there was those that chirped to that effect, but not so much early on. Generally, it was very positive sentiment. But then the real work started, which was to try to figure out how are we going to actually get these fixed up? What is it really going to cost? Can we work through this process? Can we get banks to loan us money? And
Yeah.
that was where the rubber started meeting the road, and we met some real opposition and struggle that we had to work through.
What were the strongest headwinds? What was the toughest part?
I mean, honestly, I think that early on was understanding this whole idea of the commercial building code, what it took to get a building designed and work through that process, and then really get an idea of what the price was going to be, and then be able to get it financed. And so, for that very first project, it was our wedding venue, and we estimated that it was going to be, we'd initially talked to like an engineer, and he had thrown around some numbers, and we thought that maybe it'd be about 300,000 to do this project. And this is in 2018 dollars, by the way. This almost seems absurd to even say some of these numbers anymore. But and so that was sort of what we were working on. And so when we went through the process and we really started getting bids back and everything, it became quickly clear that it was going to be probably closer to $1 million. And so that was a lot. That was more than what we had. It was more than what we planned to go and get
Hmm.
from the bank. And I had a landscaping business and, fairly significant business for a lot of years. We had real estate, had some proven track record. And so I thought, if we go to the bank, surely they, know who we are and they will believe in this project, and they'll give us the money that we need. And as it turns out, they did not. And so we had to learn a lot. We learned a lot about banking and understanding how that process goes, what they're looking for in terms of what they need in order to lend on a project. And we did some tall talking. We did some different projections. We went to a lot of banks, and that was what I learned was that sometimes different banks have different appetites for different types of projects at different times. And so we went to enough that we finally got one that would kind of take a flyer on it. The terms weren't that great, and they didn't give us nearly as much as what we ultimately needed, but they were willing to syndicate with another lender. And then we were able to do some other creative financing on the project. And ultimately, we scraped together the dollars to get it done.
So I think that this really illustrates a couple of things that I think are important to point out. One is just, I don't know that I've ever had anybody on the show that has so pointedly talked about the financial part of it. And I really appreciate just the honesty about that.
Sure.
Because I think I don't know if you've ever in your own community been faced with that question of like, oh, well, you must have gotten some grants to do this. Did anybody ever say that to you? People have said that.
Well,
to
that's
me.
what everybody said before. They're like, oh, surely there's grants for this type of thing.
People say and that is such a common thing to say. And so we like in our situation, the renovation was not funded by anything other than a loan.
Correct.
You know,
and it all has to be paid back, as it turns out.
And also because we were not an established thing, we also were not, it wasn't a business that we were just taking over and locating here. It's a business that nobody understood. So it really just ends up being like a personal loan with our personal guarantees. You're signing your life away and you're basically saying, I promise no matter what, I'll figure this out.
That's right.
But okay, so there's your side of it, right? Or the borrower's side of it. But I also think it's important just to talk for a moment about this lender. Because what you just described is something that if a community doesn't have that, it's really hard to get things done like what we're talking about. Don't you think? You have to have somebody, exactly. The idea that you said that they worked in syndicate with another bank, like and you use the term creative financing that so many bankers, like they bristle when they hear, but what we're literally saying is like, let's figure out a way to get it done. And then you followed it up with, and we scraped and scrapped until you pulled it together. That requires a willing lender, somebody like actually willing to take a risk with you to a degree, advocate for you to their credit committee or whoever they're going to. And I think that's something that's a really important piece of the puzzle to smaller community development. I get 35,000 people sounds big too. Our town's 1,800. That's still a small town by a lot of standards.
That's right.
Are you a college town, by the way?
We are not.
Okay.
We have we have a technical college and we have a branch of Ohio State University, but they're not super contributory to, kind of what you imagine a college town.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I really appreciate the time you took and spent on the finances because it also illustrates what a risk this really was for you guys, like what you were taking on,
This was just the first building, by the way.
Just one of 8.
Yeah. So, I agree. I think that it's really important getting that lending piece because it does stop some people. And we've come into a lot of situations where people want to do a thing, whether it's fix up a building, start a business, and the money part can get in the way. And so I do tell people that, first of all, if you have a good enough idea and you have some data to back it up, and it's not just like a dream, like this is actually something you've thought through, you've done some research, like you're ready to do whatever it takes to make it happen, and you have that kind of grit, money finds those deals, or those deals find money, if in other words. So you might have to knock on a lot of doors. And that's the other thing is I see people, they just give up too soon. They ask one bank and they get rejected. And it's like, No, that doesn't mean a thing. That might just mean that they don't have an appetite for that type of thing. Their loan committee is super conservative, or you haven't, you didn't find resonance with that loan officer or somebody who's really
Right.
willing to go to bat for you
Yep.
and, really go in there with some fire and some passion to say, hey, these guys know I've met with them. Like they're going to make this happen. And they do have a track record, albeit in other industries, but I believe that this is a good risk. And so you have to find all those elements. And honestly, now, on the other side of having done 20 projects, I can tell you that we've worked with a lot of different lenders, which was another surprise to me. I thought that, we kind of like, I've only been married once. I've, been married to
Yeah.
one woman. I'm pretty loyal. We've been married 20 years. And,
Yep.
I thought we'd just kind of go the distance with the, one bank. Well, as it turns out, you have to work with a lot of them and, because they want to spread their risk out and, but you've got to iterate and get that type of alignment with multiple lenders and tell your story. And what I will say is that having done one and then two and then three and four and five, now we have a track record and it is a little bit easier. We have banks
Right.
coming to us that are interested, but those
Yes.
first few, man, you got to fight for them.
Well, and what I love is that so in a former life I was a banker. I was on
Oh,
like the
wow.
personal
Okay.
and
I'm not going to
retail
hold that
side.
against you, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you. Don't. I'm reformed. We're good. Or recovered. I'm always like I'm a
Yeah.
recovered banker. But it's interesting because there was a time when there's the 5 C's of credit, and one of them is character, right?
Mm,
In really big cities, where it's the relationship still matters, right? And that's how that character piece can come into play. Like if you get a lender that really aligns with you, with your passion, with your interest, and then like you said, we'll go to bat for you, we'll advocate for you. I think that is relationships move the needle on a lot of pieces of a project along a timeline, like what you're talking about. There's this massive project. You're going to need people that'll come alongside you all along the way.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's cool. It's important to remind people of that too, that like you said, they're not all going to be for you.
Right.
There's some of them, just like you said, it's either an appetite, who knows, it might be a conservative approach, low risk tolerance, whatever it is. But the same holds true with every single partner that you need, that you can't
That's
just
right.
give up when you get that first no.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I mean, the same then goes, this is entrepreneurship and small business 101. I learned through getting the door closed in my face, for years and, with customers and lenders and suppliers or whatever the case is, you just have to have a short memory about that kind of stuff and be able to go to the next one and just keep your passion and really believe that you have something that people would be foolish not to go with you on the journey, and you have to be convinced of it first and foremost. And I've coached more than one entrepreneur to have that type of attitude that you've just got to go for it and you've got to believe in it wholeheartedly. And you can't be swayed by others that don't believe yet, because if you keep working at it, they're going to come around and they're going to believe in it too.
Yeah. So, okay. I have an interesting question. And again, you didn't know we don't script him here. So this is hitting you for the first time.
Fire away. It's only fair. I've asked tough questions to other people,
right.
And I get it turned around here.
But
so
as you're thinking about, let's even just take this first project, excuse me, which was your wedding venue.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of, actually, I'll make it easier. Any of the 8, any of the 20. Okay. Can you think of a person that was really, really skeptical, like almost to the point where they were a detractor, like a naysayer, and at some point they turned? Like you didn't maybe turn them, because you used a phrase, you just said they don't see it yet, which I think is so important. If you're a visionary human and you've got this big idea, it can be hard to paint a picture of something that some people have never seen or experienced, and then expect them to get it and get on board with you. And sometimes you need to get all the way to the finish line then and continue to invite them. And then they walk in the front doors and they're like, oh, now I get it, and you're like, where were you 4 years ago? You know what I mean? Like that just,
Right.
there's a real evolution of that. Do you have a person or a situation that stands out?
Well, one that comes to mind, I think the reality is that there was a lot of people that probably
I,
felt that way
I'm
and that
sure.
probably were kind of like, we'll see if these guys, if this, is really for real. This seems like an awfully big undertaking. There's a
Right.
reason no one's done this yet. But I do remember one particular situation where it was after we had started assembling these buildings, but before we went public with it. And I had just told a few close family and friends that this was kind of happening and this is what we were doing. And so one of them I'd met for lunch, and we were out standing on the sidewalk, kind of looking up at one of the buildings, and it was one that was vacant. And a lady came along. I won't say who she was, but she was someone kind of known in the community. And she came along and she said, "What are you guys looking at?" And, I was kind of like, I didn't say anything because I was like, I don't, well, we're not coming public with this yet. What am I going to say? I don't want to lie to this lady. And so my friend said, "Oh, we're just dreaming a little bit about things." And she looked up and she said, "Well, I hope somebody tears this building down because it sure would make a better parking lot than it does just standing here rotten." And it kind of stung a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
the reality was, again, you got to have thick skin to do this kind of work. And so I just recognize that some people just don't have the vision
Yeah.
naturally for what these things can be. And so
100%.
it was a great reminder of the fact that we have to paint the picture for people, and we have to
Yeah.
literally give them a picture. This is why we render things and,
Yeah, for
create
sure.
these, different artist and computer generated things. And because they don't have the vision. And so it's a gift that I have. It's an opportunity that I have. It's a blessing. Sometimes it feels like a curse, but it's also a challenge to remember that not everyone can see it. So we have to be very articulate in the way that we share what something could be in the future.
So that particular building, what is that one now?
That is now a boutique on the first floor and a beautiful, cool loft apartment above it.
Have you ever
So yeah,
seen this lady like walk into the boutique? Have you ever gotten to see
I
that happen yet?
she works nearby, so I have
Yeah,
to
she
assume that
probably she
she's been
probably
in
goes
and
there.
out of
Yeah.
the space. And
Because that's just it. Like, wouldn't it be interesting? And again, I'm not in any way suggesting that we should spend a lot of time dwelling on the naysayers, but I just think it's very real that
Mhm.
this lady, you use the phrase, like prominent or well known in the community. Um, it's understandable that someone would make a comment like that, but if you asked her now, would a parking lot be better than this?
Mhm.
There's no way she would make that same statement,
Right,
right?
of course.
And so the whole thing is, it's all about, I think there's so much to be said about energy protection and
Mm.
kind of idea protection, protecting your plans and not hiding them, or, there's this, I think can be a really tough balance to strike in
Yes.
transparency and public input, versus giving it all away and completely opening yourself up to unnecessary criticism by people that would never, again, like I talk a lot about the fact that one of the most important filters for me is like, would I ever ask this person for their advice? And if not,
Yes.
then I don't need to accept their criticism either.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's hard, you
Yes.
know, like,
Yeah.
especially when these people are people that you do life with, or that you expect to see or have to run into,
Yeah. Yeah. A friend of mine that does this kind of work in another community, he uses the term that we're lightning rods sometimes. We get sometimes some of the the good things,
Yeah.
but a lot of times we're absorbing a lot of the bad energy that's out there, and
Mhm.
the misunderstandings and misinformation that might circulate about different things. And there can be other feelings of jealousy or some things like that that also come. And I mean, it's the challenge and the opportunity of working in a smaller community where
Right.
everyone knows you, you know them. And especially in today's day and age, we're all accessible.
Yep.
People, can Google my phone number or email address or whatever, and they can reach out to me directly. And some of them say innocuous things or tell me their idea. Some of them say pretty hurtful things,
Yeah.
and we have to be able to
I'm
absorb that.
sorry to hear that, but
Yeah,
it literally just kind of comes with the territory.
it does. It does. Yeah.
So, okay. So just tell us of your 8 properties, these original 8 properties. What are they all today?
Yeah. So, we have the wedding venue. One became an ice cream shop that we operated for about 4.5 years, and then we recently transitioned it to a bakery that is owned by someone else. So we're no longer operating that business. Another is a few of them are boutiques with loft apartments above. One of them has a photography studio above. There's one that's now a coffee shop with apartments above it, and a hair salon with again apartments above. So there's really, again, you kind of see that theme of the ecosystem that we created, and then
Totally.
the beauty is that others have come along beside. This hasn't been a 1-man or 2-man show.
Yeah, right.
We really felt like we could catalyze something and we could create this district, and then others would come along beside. And so there was a group of a few guys that bought a building and created a microbrewery, and they operate the business, they own the building, and they're on that same block. There's another guy, great story. He was an insurance agent and was retired for like 3 weeks and got bored, and he had always wanted to own a deli. And so he and his wife bought a building and fixed it up and created a great little deli where they serve soup and sandwiches and all of this. They put an apartment above it as well. Another one where they bought a building, turned it into an office on that block. There was another group that came together. It was our local health center that was partially government funded, and they were able to figure out a way to get some grants. They were actually got some grants. Well, we have not, but they were being a nonprofit. Yeah, were able to buy a vacant couple of buildings, and they put in a small grocery store. And so corner grocery store, yeah, beautifully done, but small. But they have fresh produce, some meats and frozen entrees and canned goods and different things like that. No lottery, no tobacco, no alcohol. Okay. And so, it's really focused on the food aspect. And so, especially as we started building all these loft apartments and bringing offices down and different things like that, it's like, wow, great to have that amenity. Even restaurants, to go run and get a few items that they run out of on a Thursday morning or something randomly. Totally. They don't have time to get a delivery, but they can go get some cheese from the place down the street. So different things like that just started popping up. And so then, we got done with a lot of the work on that block, and we've moved on to a couple of other blocks and just continued that and trying to see what's the highest and best use for this building, and where have we maybe met someone that could help activate this place and operate a business that's going to be what the community needs and that jives with the other ecosystem that we have in the downtown.
Well, so it's funny, as you're saying that Marion County doesn't really have economic development. That's what this is. I mean, it's 100% what this is. It's almost like you created your own downtown business improvement district, right? Which is a thing that bigger cities have. Mm-hmm. But it's so scrappy. Like the way that you approach it is so scrappy and so grassroots and so basically just it's private sector led, right? Which I just think is such a interesting way to see this stuff happen. And man, they are, I don't know if they're running around always saying, "Man, we're so lucky to have you." That would probably be weird if they were, but they are truly very, very lucky to have you. You're a native to Marion, born and raised there, or like, tell me that part of your story.
I'm from nearby. I'm like from one county over. My wife is from Marion, so we compromised and moved to Marion when we got married. So that was So that was almost 20 years ago that we moved here to Marion. So I mean, I consider myself a hometown guy, but I mean, this is where we're raising our children. Our kids go to school here locally, and so again, those were the thoughts that as we looked around, and it's like, man, what do we want this community to become? You know, we have family here. I have another business here. We have people that we love that live here, and we want this to be the kind of community that we all can be proud of. And if we can be a piece of that to create a downtown that we're proud of, and that can radiate out through the city and through the county, and it, you know, generates pride and entrepreneurship and these other pieces that we believe are really part of a flourishing community, then we want to be part of that.
It's so great to meet you, truly. And I think the last question I want to ask you is, was there any kind of downriver benefits from this initial risk that you took? Because literally we're talking 7 years ago. Like that is not that long ago. I mean, realistically, and to imagine what you've done in 7 years is astounding. But are there any, you know, is in the form of a person or a business that started, or because this created for sure a massive ripple effect of positivity and good things. Like you shared some of them, even just in the initial block. But was there anything that you've experienced in these 7 years that you were actually surprised by, that you literally can say, my goodness, like, this is why, I mean, kind of this is why we did this, whether it was personal for you or something that you saw kind of unfold or happen in the community?
Yeah. I think that so much of it early on was, again, this is a longer story than what we have time for, but we opened our wedding venue right before COVID. So that was a whole other challenge that got created. But through kind of the digging out of that, we did a lot of events. And we were scrappy. We were super scrappy. And so my partner and I, my kids, my wife, we were working these events. And the benefit of that, though, is that I got to be eyeball to eyeball with people as I was, you know, bartending or setting up or doing this or that, and, you know, really trying to make this happen. We were just kind of fighting for our lives. But in the meantime, what I saw was the building of community and the building of pride in our community and the support of local people wanting to be part of making sure that these things stayed. And I've become such an advocate for that. I mean, I'm kind of beating that drum all the time of, you know, hey, we've got to support these things if we want them to stick around. We can fix up old buildings and we can help recruit businesses or help people launch stuff. But if we don't have the support of our locals, then it's, you know, everything's not going to stay around. But to see that happen was really, really gratifying, you know, to just see that kind of community spirit come to the forefront and affect people's decision making, and seeing them bringing their friends and family around and being proud of where they lived and proud of the venues and the restaurants and the watering holes and the shops that were popping up in their downtown and their hometown has been really, really gratifying.
I bet. And I mean, honestly, try to imagine what kind of COVID and post-COVID, that really difficult time would have been like had they not had your place with event. You know, I think there's, without question, I can picture that your investment, your projects allowed your community to move and maneuver through that more quickly and with less social fallout, with less social isolation. because that was just a brutal time to be alive. It was a really
Yeah.
bizarre experience to just not be able to do things as freely and easily as we had
Oh man, it
gotten
was.
accustomed to. It was just really
Yeah.
scary. But I really believe that and you couldn't have known that. I mean, also, I'm sure,
Right.
because I
Right.
like literally, we bought our building at the end of 2020.
Mm.
So we're renovating right in, a high supply chain, long,
Yes. Right. Yes.
lead times and everything. And
Yes.
there were plenty of times where I was just like, this is never going to work,
Mhm.
in the middle of it.
No.
You're just like,
Oh,
this
yes.
is,
Oh, I'm with you.
I don't even know what we're doing or why we're doing this. And then it's usually for me too, it's always back to the people.
Mhm.
I have a moment where, there's there's multiple generations at one thing at one time in our space. And I'm like, this is why we did this,
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. I figured you had to have something that stood out to you, because that's what keeps you going. That's what makes you keep looking to the next thing. And so speaking of the next thing, what's next for you? What are you in the middle of now? What are you thinking about doing?
Yeah. Well, we still got more vision to hopefully realize. We've got a couple more buildings that that we own, that we're kind of putting some feasibility studies on and trying to figure out. These would be bigger and bigger projects, and
Wow.
as you know, construction costs continue to be very challenging. Trades, labor and everything, just continuing to be a challenge. So we're trying to figure out, how can we make these things work? But right now we're coming hopefully very soon to the finish line of a multi-year project for actually one of the buildings that we bought as part of that initial 8. It was the biggest out of those 8. We did not start it originally. We scoped it out, priced it out in 2021, and at that time we were looking at construction costs of about $1.3 million to do this project. Fast forward to today, with some changes we've made, outfitting for, it is a few restaurant spaces and then 9 apartments, and construction cost increases and all these things. We're looking at a total price now of $3.5 million. And it has been the most challenging project that we've gotten into. It is our first historic tax credit project, so that's a story we could save for another time.
Something new.
Oh my
aren't
goodness,
you?
yes, we have learned so much on this one about the historic tax credit project. So that is the saving grace, that while I say, we've gotten really only 3% of our total project investment to date has been from any kind of grants or federal or state funding. This is going to be a significant chunk. So that is a saving grace of, even with the cost overruns, we're still way, way, way over, but we will get a portion of that back. The federal tax credit is 20%. Not every dollar qualifies, but
Sure.
we've learned through that. We've had a lot of different challenges with some different building systems and structural issues and contractor things, and we've gotten a lifetime of education, I think, on this project.
man.
And I had a friend say, I'm really gonna enjoy reading your book
Yeah.
about this.
Oh, for real. Like,
oh man, I might.
It sounds like you have a book in you for sure,
Yeah.
because it really does take a special kind of person to attack buildings specifically the way that you are. And it's awesome to know you. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing just the story, this entire story. I can't wait to see the photos.
Yes.
And
yes.
we'll share those as part of this podcast episode release. But just keep fighting the good fight. Every community needs people like you. Marion's very, very lucky to have you, Luke.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. I love talking with others that are passionate about this kind of work. And ultimately, I really hope, Rebecca, that somebody from your audience would become not only educated, but hopefully inspired to take some of this information and take a leap. Life is short and our communities need us. And there's a lot of great people out there that are willing to come along beside you to help these projects happen. And whether you have an idea for a business or a building or whatever it might be, it is such a gift to your community to be able to give that. Now, that said, it will probably be the hardest thing that you ever do. And I mean, I was
Without question.
completely unprepared for the challenges, heartache. I mean, sleepless nights like you wouldn't believe, over the last 7 years. But I also believe that it's a really enduring legacy that hopefully we're able to leave for our community. And just like a lot of other people did before us, to
Yeah,
create what we
right?
have today, we've got to continue to pay it forward if we want to have communities that we can be proud of.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like I have absolutely nothing to add to that. That's so beautifully said. And the only thing I'll add is that it is the fastest way to develop your character.
Oh, yes.
It's
Absolutely.
like
That'll
who
preach.
you are,
Yes.
sitting in front of me, you're this person because of every single challenging thing
right.
that you faced and got through, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
like you said, life is short, and I just think there's nothing more gratifying than overcoming some of the hurdles that are going to accompany a journey like yours.
Yes.
So I love that. I hope too that our listeners feel inspired. I know I certainly am. And for sure, we're going to have you back. I just feel like now we're friends, Luke. That's how this goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've got a lot more lessons in me that I can share for the benefit of someone else. I've fallen down enough times that I've learned some things, so I can keep throwing it over my shoulder to hopefully help those that are coming along behind.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks so much for being here.
You bet. Thank you.
We hope you loved this episode of the Growing Small Town Show. We encourage you to leave us messages at 701-203-3337. And be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at growingsmalltowns.org. In the meantime, keep doing what you can with what you have right where you are. Your community needs you.
Because we are growing small towns. We are growing small towns. We're right here living our best lives, as crazy as it sounds. But we are growing small towns. Growing small towns, we are growing small towns. We are growing small towns.